Welcome back to the Weird and Strong podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us, the one and only Mike Schwartz. Mike is an athlete turned musician who's discovered a fascinating connection between music and the body's energy centers. In this episode, Mike takes us on a journey in his experience as a musician, coach, and creator of the musician wellness industry. Get ready for a mind-bending conversation, and let's get weird. All right. Welcome, Mike the Schwartz, to the Weird and Strong podcast. How you doing today, brother?
Dude, it's a great day to be alive.
Hell yeah.
Up here in Calgary, Alberta, mid-stampede. So anybody tuning in that knows anything about Calgary, Alberta, Canada, knows this is the party time of this. This city just shuts down. So it's been interesting trying to get sleep. Mm-hmm. It's like my lifestyle flipped to being like only rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, man, but it's so cool because you get to see people in your city that otherwise wouldn't be here, and you get to be the tourist, and you get to, there's some people that bitch and complain about it, and I'm like, no, man, got new people in here. The city's electric. We got the rodeo going on, the grandstand show. It's just like fireworks every night. So yeah, chaos. And
it's only one time of the year.
That's what I mean. It's 10 days, guys. Come on. Let's get it together. It's been happening since the dawn of time. Calgary, Alberta is the greatest outdoor show on earth. And the Stampede is a lot of fun for that. So, but it's like 10 days of everybody thinks they're a cowboy.
Oh yeah, totally. I get that. You know, I'm from Western North Dakota. We have the Rough Rider Days, which is a much smaller version of that. But yeah, when I was growing up, that was like everybody brought their cowboy boots out for their one time of the year that they wear them. And
yeah, exactly. You spent what on that? That's like $550 for once a year. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
It compounds over time, right?
Yeah, they just last forever, right? They're an heirloom.
That's exactly it. You're speaking my language, Jared.
Yeah. So to kick it off like we always do with our guests, I got a weird question for you. You ready for this?
Stoked. Hit me.
All right. So this one's been one of my favorite ones because it's really thought-provoking. Consider a tree. You know, envision a tree in your mind. So we've got all the things that we can see above the ground, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, all of these things. And then we have all the roots below. So is the main portion of the tree below the ground and then like the trunk is like a snorkel? Ooh. Or is the main portion of it the trunk and it's wearing the earth-like shoes?
Ooh, man. That is thought-provoking. Never considered trees in this sense before. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. And I truly believe the majority of the tree, it's like the iceberg. Mm-hmm. It's under the ground, the root system. That's where all the stuff that nobody ever sees. It's great to see, you know, as you alluded to, the snorkel on top. That's the front facing, what everybody sees. And there's so much more depth. There's so much. If only that tree's sitting there going like, yo, bro, all they're seeing is my hardwood out here, my branches, my leaves. Why? Nobody knows the real me. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows the real me under the surface. You know? I can break through things, man. Mm-hmm. Like I can uproot houses,
intertwine with other,
going to grow into it,
intertwine with other trees and talk to them under the ground.
They're like playing, like, you know, they're having like hand sex with other trees. They're just like, oh, hey, how you doing? You know, like, yeah, dude. I'm a big believer, and there's a lot under the surface, and that's been a theme in my life.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect segue to, you know, a lot under the surface, because I know you are a man of many talents. You are one of these folks that I see out in the world of these jacks of all trades, because you've got so many wild things from your background. So open this up to you. What are the things that make Mike weird, unconventional? You know, weave us the tale of, has it always been this way? And yeah, open it up to you to share your story of what makes Mike the Schwartz weird.
Oh, yeah, homie. Well, if we look at the word itself, and I know you're on this, I know you're keen to this, the etymology of the word weird. Fuck yeah, I'm weird, man.
Yeah.
Like when I realized that, you mentioned, has it always been like that? Yeah, man. When I look back, I was an interesting kid. I was the kid, with music that I started considering music when I was like in grade 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Forget what I'm trying to remember the classroom so I can put it together. It might have been grade 3. And I was the kid with like the pencils tapping around on my desk and my feet that would just do what I now know are paradiddles. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm playing rudiments while I'm sitting in math class, eating snacks and stuff.
And the teacher's going, like, you're driving me crazy, kid. Stop.
Yeah, the teachers, oh man, and the classmates. The classmates were just like, homie. They didn't say that, but that'd be very interesting growing up in this Alberta. Yeah. There were no homies there. Mm-hmm. And that's part of my upbringing, man. Like I come from a very, very rich, when you think about it, rich cultural background. My mother's German. Mm-hmm. My father is indigenous. He calls himself a mutt. He's got some French, some Scottish, Ojibwe. Mm-hmm. And none of those real practices were involved in the home. So I knew it, and I had like the active wherewithal to go out and like pursue it and be like, I'm German. Oh, cool. I like this about German. I like this about German. I don't like this about German. Yeah. Like, things like that. And I like break down my own identity based off of like what I was passed down. I also grew up on a farm, 160 acres of pure, like wild prairie, man. Like, and my parents were great entrepreneurs about it. So I look back at my childhood and I look at where I am right now. And I'm like, well, duh, right? My dad, he set up the land as a shooting preserve. He was a hunter. He had a bunch of his buddies were hunters. Yeah. So they didn't like the hunting seasons. They wanted to train their dogs all the time. We also raised puppies, like golden retrievers, field trial dogs. So I grew up like the dog whisperer, little Mowgli sitting out with the puppies. Mm-hmm. So compassion was a very big element of my grow up. And when you hang out with dogs more than like your own brother and sister, you develop just a different sense of imagination in the world. And couple that with music and listening to all the stuff that your dad listened to when you're going to the game. Mm-hmm. I remember being excited about hockey growing up in Canada. I thought I was going to the show, man. I was an NHLer. I was everything I ever wanted. And what really caught my attention looking back now is that I paid more attention to what songs were playing on the car in all of my like tournament drives or anything like that. Or as soon as we had like the teams, we got to a certain age, as soon as we were allowed to bring like the boombox into the dressing room, I was like, first up. Everybody always went to me with like, Mike, get the music. I just knew the music. I knew it inside and out. I was like a walking encyclopedia because the stuff that my dad listened to, we were listening to Alan Cross and the history of new music. And we were listening to like the Stones. And my dad was telling me about these stories about these people and how he met Mick Jagger and all these things of the Alma Combo. And I was just like fascinated with like the history. So couple that with growing up at a farm, doing a deal on a handshake, learning how to like live on the land, learning how to hunt, learning how to fish, learning how to do all of these things that we're now revisiting in this real rewilding experience that everybody seems to be going through. I'm like, yeah, it's ancient wisdom. That stuff is all weird, but really, if we look at the word weird, like I was just stepping into my ultimate power, mm-hmm. right? Where I was this dude that I love trying things. Yeah. So when you try things enough and you put the reps in, I mean, the moment that I knew was when the rock doctor persona really came up. Mm-hmm. I was training as an athlete, speed skater, long track speed skater. I thought I was going Pyeongchang. Mm-hmm. All right. And I had this opportunity back in 2015 to go train in Europe. Now, in hindsight, I would have done it backwards, but I thought it'd be a good idea in the summer to be like, okay, well, training camp's then. What if I get there a little earlier, see some friends, and then, do a little tour of Europe? Oops.
Yeah.
Don't go into a training camp after a Euro trip, kids. I wrote about all this in my book. And this is what really inspired the change, because very similar to what I noticed when I was going through high school is I was torn between, people told me I had to be this or this. I had to be the hockey player or I had to be the musician. I couldn't be both. That was like, nobody does that. You're a Canadian kid. You're good at hockey. You're playing be a hockey player. That's what you're supposed to do. Right. Like that was what was ingrained. And I rejected that because I saw the music community, and that was in high school. And so at the time that I could like make that decision to really pursue hockey or not, I chose not to. And then I found myself, fast forward to 2015, in a very similar situation. People told me, you're an athlete. You got to go do this. You got to be there. And I'm like, but I still love music and I love that. What if there's a way to do both?
Yeah.
Right. So when I go through, I do the training camp, I in my head, I made the team and everything. I was invited back to camp in fall, and they're like, go home, get your stuff. We'll get you all sorted out here. These are your options of where you can stay. There's this beautiful mountain town, Insel, for the Kia Speed Skating Academy. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. It was just like, whoa, this is so cool. It brought me back to what we were talking about off air. It's like when you're a kid, 16, 17 years old, playing junior hockey, touring Canada on a bus, that's cool. Now, that's not cool. Now it's just like, no, that's boring. I want to jump on a plane and I just want to get there and get my job done. But that whole experience, the process, we lose that as we grow up. But when that's brand new and you're a kid, wide-eyed, you're like, whoa. And I was the same thing in Germany, going like, whoa, this is so cool. The Alps. Oh my God. Right. This is Austria. Holy smokes. Everybody's speaking my language. This is cool. I got good at German. I'm like, okay, this is very interesting. And then it hit me on the way home, actually. I jump on the train to catch a plane that got me home for, I don't know, $400 cheaper and 2 weeks earlier, really. So I was like, oh, sooner I get home, sooner I'll get back, and then I can train. Meanwhile, subconsciously, something else was going on. I stopped in one of my little, like there was a layover for train to train in Munich. And I remember on that ride, I'm like, there was something going on in Munich. I wonder what day that was. And there's this band, Intergalactic Lovers, who are like the Belgium version of what I related to the Canadian band Metric. Synthy pop, really cool, like dark pop stuff. And I'm like, whoa, these guys are cool. I'd love to see them. Cause like I heard about European like shows and stuff. So I get out at Munich, and this is back in the day of like phones, data plans just didn't exist international. There's no such thing. So like I was roaming, and it was not a good scene, right? Still starving artist mentality is going like, oh, I can't use my phone.
Every time you turn it on, it's like, that's $200. Cool.
That was that's exactly what's going through my head. Again, picking up on that scarcity mindset that had been great, because with that lifestyle of growing up on a farm, you were taught like there was never enough. There was never enough. So like all of these things really built into this identity of like starving artist, starving athlete, and like, oh, I've got to be really, really picky with where I put my money.
And that homesteading type of like mentality of like, we got to save everything because we don't know what winter's going to be like.
Boom. That's exactly it. Like, where's the bread? Yeah, exactly. And that shit, for people listening, man, that shit sticks with you until you work in on that. So I'm in Europe and I get out at this. I'm like, I'm just going to get off here. There seems to be people. I'm getting out. I can speak enough German to get by. So like, I won't be lost. I won't get taken advantage of. I'm walking around with like a full kitted, like hiking backpack. Like I'm hitting the Alps. Okay. I see this guy sitting on the curb. Let's call him, Helmut, German fella. Right. So I asked Helmut where the Empire is. Well, there's a rock show, because be it as it may, weird, the Intergalactic Lovers are playing tonight. And I'm like, no. Do you know where the Empire is? Munich's huge. Okay, I'm like, I'm not expecting him to know what the hell I'm talking about. He's like, oh yeah. Points across the river into like the enchanted forest. And I'm like, oh, you want me to go into the Black Forest where all your cronies are probably waiting for me? Okay, whatever. So I'm super skeptic. And I'm just like, this seems sketch, but you only live once. So sure, why not? I'll walk across the river and then jump into this forest. I got walking. I'm like, oh no. And it's getting darker and darker. And I'm walking down this windy little dirt road, like literally in a forest. And I'm like, where the hell am I going? I'm just thinking, I'm like, I should turn back. And the minute I think about that, I come around this little bend and I hear, I'm like, no. And there's this huge warehouse in this clearing of the forest. And it's this fucking Ampere. Like,
yeah, there it is.
I'm like, oh my God. I don't know if that building is still up, but guys, if you're ever in Munich, look up the Ampere, Ampere. And if that building is still there, what they did is they converted this warehouse, which I had heard of, but we don't have that in North America, really.
No,
like, it's really not old enough. So they converted this huge factory warehouse into this nightclub.
Yep.
And the Intergalactic Lovers were playing there.
Yeah.
So I get up there, speak enough broken English to them so that they could understand, because they were like in between German and English anyways. And Germany is like that anyway. If anybody's ever been there, they're very English. So we came to the agreement. They're like, yeah, come on in. Like, you're from Canada. They realized I was an athlete, so that made it a big difference. They're like, oh, we got a national anthem. Yo, this is so cool. Like, they just loved the celebrity status. And I'm like, I just really want to see the band. Like, are they still playing? They're like, end of the set, man. They probably got another, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Just come in. Don't worry about it. No cover, which, again, feeding into my scarcity mindset as an athlete, it was like €20 to get into the show for like 20 minutes. I'm like, that's basically the last little bit of money I have. So that was really nice. Leave my stuff behind the bar. They said, just buy around at the end of the show for the bartender and tip well. And I'm like, all right, cool. Catch this show. It was amazing. And up on stage at the, like, in between songs, I see the guitarist doing this. And I'm immediately I'm a personal trainer at this time too, right? And I'm sitting there going like, oh man, I know I can help this guy. I got my whole kit, right? Yeah. I got like my bands, I got my ball. I can help this guy. Mm-hmm. And we meet and interact, and I relieve this guy with what now is known in the Music Fit method as a 5-minute fix. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just a quick little 1-2. We do a little bit of ART type stuff and some pinning work, and magic is made, especially when nobody's ever seen that before, right?
Yeah.
So they'd never seen this, and they were like, oh my God, you're Jesus. You got to come on tour. We're playing these shows. And I'm sitting there going like, that's awesome. Cool. I'm going home to Canada. I'm a speed skater. So that's really cool. I'd love to. I'll catch you on the next one. And then I take the rest of the train. So we part ways. We stay in touch and everything. And I jump on a train out of Frankfurt back home. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I go, bing. Mm-hmm. That's it. I can do that. So that long-winded story, that just showed me how all of my childhood, always mixing the athletics with the music, mm-hmm. It led me to that one position where I went rock doctor. And at that point on, 2015, I started writing my book on that plane about musician wellness in 3 key areas: mm-hmm. the movement, the nutrition, and the mindset. Yeah. And those were the key areas to my knowledge at that time. And things have changed now. But for the longest time, I always thought every musician needs a coach. Mm-hmm. And I ran with that up until about 2020. Right. And that has been like the real like magic of identifying, oh, you're a weirdo. Oh, yeah. Like, I created an industry, essentially, mm-hmm. created the musician wellness industry. The rock doctor, according to Australia. So that's what gets us here. And for the longest time, like, I thought every single musician needs a lifestyle check. Mm-hmm. And if it's not me, I'm going to develop a certification where other musicians can learn the basics so it doesn't become more expensive, because that's the last thing people need is another person to bring on the road. Yep. What if we had one in the band? What if every band had a member that could be the acting therapy? Yeah. You know, the sounding board for mindset, the movement specialist that gets people warmed up, even just leading a movement practice before a show or on the road. Like, get up at the gas station. What's the number of the fuel? Okay. Yeah, that's how many squats you're doing. Okay, cool. You know, like things like that. So that took me to a very certain peak and there was just something more. And that's when I realized you could turn the hat around and every coach can actually use a musician. So yeah. I play in both worlds, man. Yeah, that's super cool. And that's one of the things I love about talking with folks on this show is, like,
seeing the similarities to my life as well, and like getting to learn and hear everybody's stories, because also musician. I wanted to be a hockey player growing up,
Right.
but my parents never had the money for it because hockey gets real expensive.
Does, dude.
And I was like, well, I always picked the most expensive sports for whatever reason. I couldn't just go play like basketball where like all you need is shoes.
Soccer.
Yeah.
$15, bro.
Yeah. No, apparently that wasn't in my, but and so I went towards like the academic thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on buses for like competitive speaking and things like that. But I was the guy with the headphones on all the time with the music. And so, and then got into music, and I've been on a very similar path where I went the complete other direction into fitness. And then now I'm coming back into the music world and seeing a lot of the same things that you were talking about, of like, oh, all my musician friends are really, really unhealthy, and they just have no clue. And not even just physically unhealthy, they're mentally unhealthy. They're emotionally
even
unhealthy.
More. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, my cousin is one of my best friends, and we collaborate on so many things. We were just talking about this yesterday. I was like, yeah, music is your outlet. And I was like, are there songs that you get into that are still a little tough to do because you're using this as your emotional release? And he's like, yeah, why? I was like, we got something here. We can play with.
Yeah. It's fascinating, man.
Mm-hmm.
I know in our mutual community there with Enlifted, Jenny just posted the power of music and how it's affected you since going through. I'm really interested if it's had a big impact on the way that you listen to music as well, because that's a big passion of mine, is when people, they listen from a state of being nascent, not ignorant, because they don't even know.
Yeah.
And they listen and they hear that hook. And a great example I always come back to that was playing all the time in like late 90s, early aughts, 3 Days Grace, the blessed Canadians. I hate everything about you. Why? You know, like,
yeah.
Or Limp Bizkit, Break Stuff, like, or Blink-182, like,
Break Stuff,
I mean,
the one that's
funny.
in every single gym all the time,
right?
Like, and that's just subconsciously.
I just one of these days I don't want to wake up. You know, like, what you don't realize the power and the influence. And that's why I said for a long time I was wearing the cap backwards. I was wearing the cap back, being like, I'm the coach for all the musicians. And then I started to realize how influential music is. Mm-hmm. We are, as musicians, as artists, if you happen to play guitar, and that's how I define a musician, because they're always like, I'm not a musician. I'm like, do you play an instrument? Like, yeah. I'm like, okay, you're a musician.
Yeah.
You have the power to be anything that you want. You can practice, right? Including music. So because you do, you are now one of us. And the influence that we have, there's a reason every single major historical event was centered around some form of creativity. Any sort of revolution, you look at as far back as like the Industrial Revolution. Everything had, every major tradition carries music. Music is a key element. Mm-hmm. And I come back to like the really, meta thought that we as a human being are a song. The first sound we hear is the doom, your mother's heartbeat, the doom, right? It's the first sound you ever hear. The heartbeat is the driving factor of most songs, unless you're talking instrumentals and you got no beat. But for the majority of the stuff that we're especially listening to in popular top 40, you put a nice little beat down and a catchy little hook, you're in. That is a hypnotic state. And when you put those words in there, that messaging, that could mean anything. We know the power of the words. You can do some real good, and you can also do some real bad. Yeah. And we will look at the state of the world right now, where so many of us are in a very stuck victim mentality of everybody else's problem. Life is happening to me, not for me. And we look back at the stuff that is popular on the charts right now, and there's a direct relationship. Like they're singing about that. They're not just singing about it. They're glorifying it. It's cool to be in pain. Mm-hmm. It's cool. If you're a bigger victim than me, you are now like, give him 3 face tattoos. He's the coolest guy, you know? And that's where we're at. And that's one thing I'm just absolutely squashing now with my role, from what I've been on the other side of it, the coach for the musicians. Mm-hmm. I built up a pretty good name about that, a pretty good reputation. And now I'm like, oh, by the way, remember how I was a musician? So now we're going to do the same thing. And then we're going to amplify, literally, pun intended, that whole message. And when we do that, it's my damn mission, man. That's my life goal, is to completely overthrow what the music industry is currently known as and give it a whole new facelift.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, there's talk industry, like there's a power vacuum with it, because all of the distribution, all the things that we knew from the music industry 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they're gone. She gone. You know, for better or worse. You know, there are definite downsides to that, but like it's much more democratized now. Like anybody, like look at all the SoundCloud rappers that have come up through things that completely grassroots. Yeah, TikTok, everything.
Because there's so much visibility now. You'd never see Zeppelin. Like, how did Zeppelin become such a friggin' monster? Mm-hmm. Literally, the reps, they played every friggin' show in the UK and got noticed by the right ears. Mm-hmm. That could happen anywhere right now. Like, your clubs in England are literally SoundCloud. You can make a beat on your phone.
Yeah.
You can rap into your phone, post that up on SoundCloud for nothing. Everybody and their dog is an artist, which, like you said, it's good and bad.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of perks, because if you've got something to say, there's an audience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right? And be interesting to hear your thoughts on this. One thing that I've always, not always, but from a younger version of myself onward, have firmly believed, because I studied music in university and musicology and things like that.
Yeah.
I believe that music, even just the audible portions of it, not even the text, is language.
100%, man.
Whether we can, you know, we can be like the ivory tower types and really like analyze and talk about it and like get into the nerdery of it. Most of us can actually, when we hear something, we can articulate what we hear and what we feel when we hear it. Mm-hmm. Whether we understand it or not, we can at least articulate that. And so there is a major power that comes from that, of just the sonic version of it coming through his language as well. I don't know if you have 100%. a similar idea.
Yeah, I've got a couple, because I do believe that, you know, for those that want to dive into the tech, sound is a vibration. When you say you walk into a new room, new sitting, new gym, and you see that guy in the corner, he's a little weird. Like, but not in the good sense, like not like good weird. Like, he's off. He's got a weird vibe, is one thing that we say. Vibe, short for vibration. He's emitting a weird energy, because sound is just that. And without getting further into that, we also look at, like, okay, we've got, let's give it the overview for those that aren't into the tech, and then I'll come back and visit the tech piece. If we look at music moves people. That'd be fair, right?
Absolutely does.
Look at the word emotion, meaning feeling.
Yeah.
Look at the root of that word, motion.
Mm-hmm.
To emote is to have a feeling. Mm-hmm. So if music moves us and emotion is a feeling, motion, movement, there's a direct relationship there. So just on a surface level, and coming back to the tree, just on the surface, just on the surface, we've got motion. So it can inspire us to do, or most often not to do. Yeah. Many of us stay stuck in that, and we love feeling those feels. When we listen back to, like, a big group for me was Linkin Park. That was one of the first albums I remember buying, Hybrid Theory.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, wow, if my parents would have understood the power of music, they would never have let me buy that album.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of hurt that forces us to stay. There's tons of negations, which we know keep us in the past. And there's so much hurt and anxiousness and anxiety, and it's all built up and covered up by this like hard hitting rock and roll thing where you're thought as a young adolescent male going into a hockey game that that's what's going to get you fired up enough to score 3 goals.
Yeah.
But really what it does is it makes you focus on how shitty you feel. And that doesn't help us move. That actually keeps us stuck.
Creates tension, not without a release.
Bingo.
Because also movement is that combination of tension and release, back and forth, otherwise known as a vibration.
Exactly. And that's what we look at, right? And when we look at the vibration, if we go a little deeper now, we're going to get back into under the soil, into the roots of that tree. The vibration, our body is made up of a bunch of different energy systems or centers, and way up above us, way transcendent up into the universe, like universe, one verse, song, one song, guys. We are a song. So when your body is all split up into these chakra systems, each representing a different part of us, our emotional trauma, our emotional well-being, emotion being movement, vibration. Each of these energy centers has a very specific, distinct vibration that it will resonate with. I'm using a lot of puns here and totally unintentionally, but it's true, right? And when you've got something going on, and this is what I first found the power of chakras when I was still full-time strength coach. I still do it, but when I was full-time, I was full send strength coach, rock doctor style. A big part of my practice was from the legendary GOAT, Paul Chek, of identifying energizers. And I did everything I could from a physical level to help fix a particular gentleman's shoulder. He was broken down, man. He had frozen shoulder. He couldn't lift his elbows out to his side. Like he got to about here. Yeah. Elbows were like nips high. He couldn't get up. He couldn't get back. He certainly wasn't moving anything, not even laying down on the ground. I go to one of Chek's workshops that talks about emotional trauma, and I just bring up the question, you been thinking about your dad lately? He lost his father. His father hung himself. And he never talked about it.
Yeah.
He went into it that day as we were going through a stretch. He's like, it's just about that time again, the anniversary, and it always comes up. And then without any other cue, it was like waterworks, man. Oh, like he got hit by a ton of bricks of emotion. And he gets up, dusts himself off, grabs a drink of water, and I didn't know what to do. I'm still pretty green at this. I'm just sitting there going like, whoa, what the fuck happened? Paul, you all right? He's like, yeah, man. Well, let's just keep moving. I didn't even think about it. It was totally just like, okay, well, let's just get up to the wall and let's just see. I wanted to do a check and recheck, right? Just to see what he could do from a wall angel position. He got his arms up to the wall. First time ever. 5 minutes ago, he was bawling, talking about his father. Now we know that's a relationship. That's love. That's the heart center. He brought that thought to his conscious mind, and the tension that was being held through his physical body from the emotional pain of that was released immediately. He went up and proceeded to do 10 freaking wall angels. 10 minutes ago, he couldn't even get his arms on the ground from a supine position. Yeah. I'm sitting here going like, oh man, that's heavy. I went home and I sat with that. I was just like, what just happened?
I have this new data and I'm not sure what to do with it.
Yeah. My Intel processor needed an upgrade. I was like, oh, it cannot compute.
Yeah.
My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer. And I'm sitting here going like, oh shit. And that point on, I was like, whoa, there's something here. And then I started playing with it much later with music. So all of my coaching sessions, if I'm doing a storywork coaching session, or even when I was still doing virtual movement sessions, I would always have music and frequency playing. And people always commented on it. They didn't understand why. Like we had said, you don't need to know the why. You just need to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Just do it. Don't understand. Don't try to understand unless you really want to dig in. And they started getting better results. They felt more focused when we were doing presentations. They felt more inspired to learn. They felt more inspired to like push through, be more resilient. Like it was all of these things. They slept better. Like it was like all of those things that I was worried about as a coach in habits. I was like, oh, you just got to sleep more. You just got to eat better. But if the identity is broken because they haven't brought up these emotional traumas, what good is it?
Well, you're just telling them
habits.
You're prescribing something to them that they're not going to do anyways.
Yeah.
And I think I know because I've also experienced this in my coaching journey as well. Of like, you get to that point where you're like, does anybody even listen to me?
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're like, well, is it a problem with the information that I'm presenting, or is it a problem with how I'm approaching it? And you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course, because we've likely had that experience for ourselves as well. Of like somebody tells us something to do and we go the opposite direction. Like I had an experience with another coach, a previous guest at a retreat, and he was doing some body work during plant ceremony that we were doing. And he's just like, mind if I like mess around with you a little bit and stuff? He's like, it's like, this is weird. Like your left side is just like doesn't want to do what I want it to do. And then he'd like tell me something. He'd tell me something. He's like, it's okay to cry. And then I'd just start laughing. He's like, it's okay to laugh too. And then I'd start crying. And he's just like, oh, you got like a little rebellious streak in you, don't you? And I was like, I've never thought of it that way, but I do have like the Star Wars Rebel Alliance, Rebel Scum tattooed on my left calf. I've got a pirate ship on my left arm. I was like, oh yeah. Yeah. Tell me what to do. I'm going to go the opposite direction, do everything opposite what you told me to do.
Yeah, man.
If I tell me what to do, I do it.
That's exactly it. It's, you read the four personality traits, like the four types of behavioral. There's like four throughout your life. It's pretty immovable. It's one of these thoughts of behavioral science that I forget the author and the title, but it's something about the four personality traits. Okay. I'm a rebel too. Yeah. Ryan Walla is also a rebel. He's the guy that introduced this to me, my dear friend. Shout out Walla. The easiest way to get a rebel to put in a light bulb is not telling him. Right?
Just leave it out there.
Just don't tell him. Yeah. Stop trying to get him to change the light bulb, because he's literally everything in him, even though he wants to, when you tell him, not happening. And I lived my life like that, man, until I understood that. Yeah. As a splenic projector and this rebel and a Pisces and all these things that I don't know if it's nature or nurture. I think we can also take those things and like really lean into them and use them as an excuse in some cases as well. Oh, it's because I'm a fucking Aries. Like, what? What does that even mean? No, that was what I did as a German when I was drinking heavily. Yeah. It's in my blood. I'm German. I can drink beer. Like, what? Yeah. No, you're an alcoholic. It's in your blood. It's like,
you're still making a choice. Like, it's not, you've chosen that identity as a beer drinking German, not the other way around.
No. Yeah. That's exactly what I mean. Like, what if you never knew anything about Germans? You're still German. Yeah. How does it work? It doesn't go both ways. Right. So like, the rebel personality. Yeah, you and I definitely. I got that immediately after a few. I think it was the 90 Minutes of Awesomes that I started picking up on people's personalities. So that's one thing that I really love doing. I love being the fly on the wall. Is what I do as a DJ. It's part of my job. It's part of a skill that I've learned, is to watch the room, see who's vibing, see what's going on, even from a video or virtual standpoint. You can still pick up a lot of cues and where to go for the next journey, for the next song. You'll see some people are just like this, or they're distracted, or they're not doing anything because they're just stuck in a zone. And those are all cues. That's all information. It's not right or wrong, not inherently good or bad. It's like info. Yeah. And you do that in a club and you turn that club upside down, right? You do that as a rock star, even bigger, because it's it as a live player, when you you've got one shot, and oftentimes it's not perfect.
Yeah.
More times than than it is. And that's what makes it beautiful and human, is because people understand that. And in that moment when it's not perfect, let me ask you, have you ever been to a U2 concert?
I haven't, no.
Too perfect. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was just like, there were no mistakes.
Yeah. It's polished.
I'm like,
yeah,
it's not believable.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big reason why I personally don't go to like big shows. Like I love local, like grimy shows because I know it's going to be a little raw. I know it's going to be something I haven't heard. I know that they're likely going to be a little down on themselves for missing one note. Nobody else is going to care. But I'm like, that's what I love. I don't want to see or like listen to the recording. Like
that's exactly what it was. I was just going to say, I was listening to, it was on their 360 tour.
Oh yeah.
That big reunion thing. And I saw them in Edmonton, and it was mind blowingly good. Like the edge is how I play guitar. Like he is not a good guitarist. He has like 4 notes and an effects board. Yeah. And I'm like, that's my style, bro. let me cover up my talent.
Like that's a different kind of talent though, because it's soundscape. It's a layering. It's all of those things.
It's like he's the traditionalist musicians will hate me for this, but he is the equivalent of a DJ on guitar. Mm-hmm. A DJ is an incredible talent, man. I know many of them that are world famous, and they spend more time on their craft, on how to sync beats, how to mash up, how to transition, how to read a room. That is a skill. Those are all incredible communication skills. Yeah. And like coming back to the thought, music is the greatest communicator, man. Mm-hmm. Believe it was Anthony Kiedis, make 2 sticks.
Yeah.
Like it's like, dude, musicians and music, it transcends those boundaries of language. It mystifies all of our differences and puts us all on the same level field, because again, we feel, and that's a human quality. So when you have a song, it doesn't matter what language it's in, mm-hmm. it will evoke the same feeling from a South African man and a friggin' Australian woman. Same emotion, or maybe not same emotion, maybe a very different emotion. Key is it'll evoke an emotion.
Yeah. They're going to feel something, whether it's, and again, it's something that you've said before that we both said, it is that it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different.
Yeah. It's powerful, man. Yeah. Magic. It is the highest form of magic. It can transform.
Fucking word. Yeah. I absolutely believe that as well. And, there are so many avenues that we could dive down. You talked about maybe the technical aspects of this a little bit more. If you wanted to dive into that as well, of what.
Oh yeah, dude. Like the technical aspects regarding vibration. Let's start there.
Yeah.
Especially like your audience, I'm certain they do a lot of fun, weird things, mm-hmm. right? And this is one of those fun, weird things that people fail to consider how powerful it is. There's a bunch of videos out there on. There's one that comes to mind in particular. I'll try to dig it up for you so you can put a link in on the show notes here, because this is fascinating. When people like they are skeptical, oh, music, come on. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I listen to Miley Cyrus, so I'm gonna hate my life. I'm like, probably. Yeah. All right. And the frequency is a big part of that, because if we think of frequency in hertz, which is the homie that coined the term in easiest way is like, and this for the listeners, it's like pitch. Like a low frequency is down low, high frequency is up high. That's the easiest way. So on an EQ, we're going to look at those frequencies, and each of those frequencies, to get into the nerdy tech stuff, represents another one of those, when we come back to the chakras, energy centers. And working from the ground up, I just finished a blog post that'll come out on Sunday on this. And I'll happy to link this, because it's a very clear with examples of songs that are in these things. You can hear the difference. That's the coolest part. And I'm happy to play it. Like we can do whatever we need to here, just to give. It's so much more powerful when people hear it rather than just, oh, cool. When you experience it, you're like, oh shit. So if we start at the root chakra, this is known as the I am affirmation, red association color. And this is the type of stuff, like if you've got issues, you've got blocks in the root chakra, things like money, security, you're going to notice flare-ups in your ankles. You're going to notice flare-ups in your hips, knees, low back, sometimes even. All of that is your root. That is, coming back to the tree, the root system. Okay. Typical frequency for that is a 396 in and around. And again, these are all, every number I say, I'm just throwing the generalized number out there. Everybody can experience this differently. The next one, and this is one area that I saw a lot of, and we'll talk about why, with my musician clients, my athlete clients, was a sacral. Typically a 417 hertz. Okay. So we're coming up a little bit, and associated with orange. And it's the creative center. The affirmation is I feel. Okay, well, let's wind that back for a sec. Notice what I said, athletes and musicians, creative center. Yeah. Athletics is a form of creativity. Okay, it's problem solving. Yeah. When you're a high level athlete, you have become a specialist of problem solving. How to get to point A to point B fastest, or how to negotiate this to get more points. Those are all problems that you solve. You're a problem solver. You're creative. Same with a musician, right? Big relationship between those two identities. And what I saw in my work, in all of my research with all of the musicians that I saw a very, very distinct relationship between those two profiles. There was a lot of low back and hip problems. Now, they thought, because they were a drummer and sitting all the time, and while that may be true, it's also your creative center and your sexual libido center and the whole reproductive thing. So what do we know about the lifestyle of a rock and roll superstar? They're on the road all the time. Okay. They may be like Future, 17 baby mamas, or they may be no relationship, no sexual identity, no, like a very big torn feeling in there.
They're living on the bus from place to place to place to place and disconnected from it. Yeah,
totally. And your feel center is out. So that, I mean, let's think about that, right? And then we move up a little higher. We move into the solar plexus, right? And this guy can be, it's typically the 528 hertz, or A equals 444. 432 is another popular for the solar plexus. The idea here is a yellow as a color. Gut issues or symptoms, very, very common. So if you got IBS, solar plexus, if you've got like heartburn, stuff like that, that's going to show up in digestive, and just this feeling of like having your instincts off. Like you don't really know what your purpose is. The affirmation, I do. So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Right. And that's a challenging spot. So this is one that focus is another thing that is really heavy in this area as a symptom. Like I feel distracted all the time. It's because we're not aligned with a purpose, a higher meaning. Right. And the music tuned in to hit that frequency at 444 or 528, it'll do stuff. It'll make you tune in much better. Right. As we move up, we go into the heart chakra. 639 is a very popular one. And that's again with the gentleman I used, Paul. He couldn't lift his arms. So we see a lot of shoulder issues. We see a lot of elbow and wrist issues in musicians. Guess what we also see, and we know what you already alluded to, relationships, right? Their love. They are the suffering artist. They don't make any money, but they do what they love. Yep. That's a story. I make a lot of money doing what I love. I'm no different than the next guy on the street. I have a different mindset towards it because I've done this inner work on it, and I play that 639, and you'll feel warm and fuzzy with a heart frequency song. It makes you feel like loved. One of the easiest way to say it, like you feel loved. You listen to that frequency and you're just immediately like, here it smile. Is. Yeah, this is good. Right. So and again, that is the green is the color, and very common issues are like what I mentioned, and heartache and feeling of tightness and cancer, like lung cancer, like disease, heart problems, like literally things that are in the Western world, like, oh, you got to go to the doctor for that. No, you just got to listen to some fucking music.
Mm-hmm.
You got to address the inner turmoil going on in your life, the emotional stuff. Because most people are like, oh, I'm over that. Well, why don't you get into that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good translation. Instead of being over it, get into it, and you'll see some progress in those areas.
That just reminds me of a quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza of a memory without emotional charge is wisdom. Yeah, I'm over it. Are you really over it? Let's talk about it.
Boom.
Oh, there it is. Opened right back up. Okay.
I'm ready. Yep. Homie. Yeah, that's exactly it though. And on the other side of that, anytime you do have a very quick, instinctive emotional charge, it's worth examining.
Yes. 100%.
We see that a lot on the road as musicians and athletes. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure business owners, entrepreneurs, we deal with high stress situations. So when somebody says something that may trigger, it's worth taking that breath and being like, why am I getting fired up about that? What have I got room to improve on so that next time I feel that, because those things will still happen. Yeah. It's not like you're going to stop the world from doing things that will trigger you. It's your job to respond though. Mm-hmm. Right? So when we look at the heart, I love is the affirmation. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And we move up to the 741 in the throat. This one's huge as a musician, because I saw a lot of neck. I saw neck and shoulders, elbows, wrists, low back, hips, and I wrote about them in a book. Mm-hmm. And without the prior, like enough surface level knowledge, but not the stuff I know now. So we're about due for another edition. The neck, the throat, we saw a lot of people with like vocal cord problems. They would blow their throats out singing.
Strange.
And this is after like 2-3 shows. And Stampede is a great example. Like a lot of the musicians that I network and play with here, I'm an old man in terms of like the Stampede circuit now at 36. Yeah. That tells you what the 20s are like though. Mm-hmm. 10 days and you're making an annual income in those 10 days, but you're also playing bell to bell. Yeah. You're playing a breakfast Stampede pancake breakfast show. You've got a lunchtime corporate, and then you got probably 2 in the afternoon, and then also the big evening one, which is usually a 10 o'clock to 2. So you're literally playing about 6 a.m. load in, mm-hmm. if not earlier, till you're getting home at 2:30 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
3 o'clock.
If you don't have to do a loadout or anything like that.
Yeah. If you don't do a loadout, then you can just rip because you're playing there again tomorrow night. Oh. Yeah. And this is what I get to look forward to tomorrow. And Saturday we've got a Friday gig with the Frontiers. And then we've got 2 Saturdays, and it's just a gong show. So you can imagine the throat would get blown out from the physical perspective. However, when you feel you don't have a voice, I'd argue that's more powerful. Right. Yeah. And especially as musicians where they feel like they don't get heard, because if we look at and we study the lyrics, a lot of the lyrics in popular music are around that theme. Mm-hmm. Nobody listens to me. Nobody hears me. Are you listening? Listen, mm-hmm. listen. It means they've got a block in their throat center, the communication center. Mm-hmm. Music at 741 will come in there and allow you to, the affirmation, I speak, or for the musicians, I sing.
Yeah.
Right. And we're dealing with a nice blue, right? And then we work our way up into the third eye, 852. And that's our vision. I see. So when we're blinded by all of these other demands in the music industry, or all of these other demands as an athlete or as an entrepreneur, we're being pulled in multiple directions. We've lost our course of direction. You're going to notice migraines. You're going to notice earaches. You're going to notice sinus infections. You're going to notice all these things going on in the face. You know, you might break out.
Yeah.
You know, you might have random eye problems, like your eye will just twitch, or you'll get like a puffy eye, or like a what do they call it? Spy? Yeah, that one. Sty. Yeah. That's the one. I know, spry. Yeah. I was like,
it's something around there.
The little dragon, the PlayStation.
P.R.O. Yeah.
I loved him. He was cool. He's cute.
Yeah.
Cute little dragon. But yeah, like a sty, or like random things. Breakouts, nosebleeds, like toothaches, like we were talking, anything in the face. Mm-hmm. Headaches are really common, especially here in Calgary. We've got a weather system that comes in. It's called the Chinook, and a lot of people get pressure sensitive. and they boil down to that. Are they pressure sensitive, or are they not really figured out what they want to do with their life? Are they missing the vision, right? There's a lot of debate out on that stuff. Like, I know it's esoteric and it fucking works, man. Mm-hmm. And then we move up to the final, the crown, 963. That's the king, right? And that is the I know. And that is purple royalty. That is the king, the sovereign, the queen, you know? And when you know and you understand without doubt what you are doing, you've got flow through the entire chakra system from the ground all the way up. And that's where we see a lot of those things. If you've got, it's like a hose, a water hose. If you got a kink in one of those energy systems, all of them are off because there's no flow up or down. Yeah. Right. So it's just my throat. Well, that doesn't matter because it's actually going to affect your heart, and it's going to affect your hips, and it's going to affect your ankle. That might be actually why your ankle's off. Mm-hmm. So when we look at that and passively prescribe as coaches music, it's a Trojan horse. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows what it does. That's great. Doesn't matter. Just listen to it. Listen to the beat. Cool. Groove. How do you feel? Fucking great. What happened? My head doesn't hurt. No. Funny that.
If it sounds good,
vibration.
If it sounds good, it feels good. It is good.
Bingo. That's exactly it, man. Yeah. And that, in a nutshell, is each of the chakra systems and how they relate. Mm-hmm. And they're very important in my line of work as the weirdo that makes coaching cool with entertainment.
Yeah.
I edutain. I'm an artist. I literally take what I know of all the life experience that I have with wellness, all of my strength and conditioning background, all my physical, all of my mental, all of my emotional training. Mm-hmm. And I apply it into songs to frequency with motivating or enlifting messages. Mm-hmm. So that people, when they listen to it, yeah, it's a cool beat. And then they start listening to it and they're like, whoa, that's profound. I'm like, yeah. Imagine if we started writing music as artists from a healed or healing perspective rather than in the stuck still.
Yeah. Well, even as artists embodying that wounded healer archetype, you know, the healer can't heal unless they've healed themselves.
No. Yeah. And another great fact is that there's a lot to do about this hurt people. Well, how about healed people? What do?
They heal people. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And are we ever really fully healed? I don't know. Jerry's out on that. Well, it's from a healing perspective to say, because there's a big, and this is a great coach. It's the one that's just a couple steps ahead. Mm-hmm. Paul Chek isn't Paul Chek because he knows everything. He's a few steps ahead of most people.
Yeah.
But he is a continued learner of the thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's where a lot of people stop. They think they got it all made. I was one of them. I was a coach with all the answers.
Mm-hmm. Been there, done that.
Fuck that.
But also as an artist or an athlete or any of these other identities too, of mm-hmm. like, oh, if only I can do this, then I'll be successful or whatever that is.
Classic.
And then you get there and you go, well, okay, well, now what? And it's like, oh, the journey ends when I leave this mortal version of myself. And like, I used to, because I worked in the tech, I guess I work a little bit in the tech world right now again. Yeah. The thing that drove stakeholders and executives nuts and still does is ask, when is it done? It's done. It's done when you shut it off. Your healing ends when you eject.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah, then you're out into the next world, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. That's a cool topic because it's a weird topic that a lot of people, especially, I just related back to my industry. Primary industry is wellness and health and how it relates and music, right? And a lot of the musicians that are starting to come around, good friends of mine, are just starting to scratch the surface on mortality mm-hmm. in their craft. I'm like, dude, it's the only thing we're guaranteed.
Yeah,
like that seems like the lowest hanging fruit. Why is nobody singing about that stuff? Mm-hmm. It's going to happen.
Well, it's scary. It's whatever the popular belief about it is. That's likely why nobody's talking about it. And
because and those other things that we're not supposed to talk about, money, sex, we're not supposed to talk about those things. Why do you think we have so much porn addiction? Mm-hmm. Why do you think we have so many scarce people?
Yep. People afraid to actually believe in themselves, to actually try, make an attempt at betting on yourself for a change rather than
right?
Waiting for somebody to give you the right job, give you the right promotion, whatever it is. Yeah.
It's the fear of the unknown. I saw it as an athlete. People were afraid of me because I was about the same size at 16 as I am now, right? Like I was a full grown human by 18 and I was a big kid. And coming from a farm background, I was a big fucking strong kid.
Yeah.
People didn't know what to do with that when I played a city team because the city kids were typically not the farm kids. They were just a different breed of human beings. They didn't have the same kind of resiliency because they weren't out doing 6 hours of chores every friggin' day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was literally my job.
Yeah.
I did chores after I went to school for, the 7 hours or whatever it was. I'd come home and it was just immediately ingrained that, okay, well, we got to go take care of all the dogs. We've got to go, patch up fences. We got holes out here. We got to go do this. And then we feed and then we eat and then we go back and we do a little bit more before we lose the sun.
Yep.
The challenge in the summer is the sun is up till fucking 11 o'clock. I'm like, yeah. So like, Dad, come on, bro. Work. Like this is slave labor, 12 hours. Come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a big property, man. There's a lot to do. But that gives you such a great wisdom because that taught me everything I need to know about the way world works, right? Is that if you put in the practice, it is all about your mindset towards that. And when you're out on the farm and there's just no other option, it's the same as like when you're a fighter, a cage fighter, an MMA, like there's no other option. Like you will get out of that and you will find a way to do what you need to do to get out of that thing. It's just a survival mechanism at that point. And I mean, there's good and bad to that. And when you can realize it and step away and see it from a different perspective, like you get that space and that clarity back and you can make a conscious decision with nice breath, smart, conscious behavior. Oh man, you can make really impactful decisions from a place of abundance rather than fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when you're able to do that, it's the game is completely different.
It's fun.
Yeah,
for sure. Fun. It's infinite. And I love that theory of infinite play. Mm-hmm. Life is a playground. I wrote a short story called The Playground, literally about, wow, what if we just approached life like we did in grade 3? Mm-hmm. I remember how many short stories I read that were just so beautiful and like really described life in the way it should be. Animal goes to animal B, they're friends. They go play and they meet animal C. Animal C invites them over to the party. Oh man, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is a great moral lesson. Like instead of like animal A doesn't see animal B because they're on their fucking phone. Mm-hmm. They walk in front of a train.
Yeah.
They get hit by the train. End of story. I mean, that's how a lot of people are running their lives on autopilot.
Yeah.
And when we slow down and we take in nature, get our sunlight, get back to the basics of ancient wisdom, music is a part of it. Breathing is a part of it. Communication with other human beings is a big part of it. And then we can live as if life was infinite and there was no like winning, losing. Mm-hmm. It's just playing for the sake of playing. Do you remember that, people? Mm-hmm. Do you remember when you just played games at recess just for the sake of playing? There was no winner. There was no point. You're playing tag and just everybody won.
Well, to play this back to your athletics of like, when did you start playing hockey?
In Canada, we're born with skates, bro.
Yeah,
I was literally skating on bob skates by 2.5 years old. Like I could barely walk, and I was a better skater than a walker. I know it sounds cliche, but there's a reason there's cliches out there.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, there was a conversation with the last Winter Olympics of why did Norway dominate? Oh, it's because they have long winters. Canada's got long winters too. Mm-hmm. Parts of the U.S. have long winters, and we're not seeing that same medal count. And they were hypothesizing like, well, we don't actually have our kids specialize. They actually play sports with play in mind and not a winning or losing attitude.
Bingo.
And it's like the reason why we're doing that is because, we do have a lot of winter sports, and we also have a very different approach to it. Is we allow them to explore and play, and they're not trying to specialize as a hockey player at 5 years old.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And there's a really great book, The Sport Gene. You ever read it?
I haven't.
Oh, dude, you'd love it.
Write that one down.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I've got it somewhere on the shelf over here. It's They probably had an alternate title that they had to remove because the editors are like, oh, but it could also be called Why Black People are inherently better at most physical activity.
I've another previous guest, a great friend of mine, has mentioned this, and we've talked about this topic. Yeah.
Yeah. Because genetically, there's a reason the Dutch are such great speed skaters. Mm-hmm. Genetically, they've got knocked knees, which on the surface looks like a disadvantage. A knocked knee goes a little out on a full extension. So if you look at the speed skating stride, it's not a 45-degree push like in hockey. Mm-hmm. It's not 45. It's straight out. So if you got a knocked knee, guess what? Your straight out goes a little bit further.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about force, there's 3 forces in speed skating: ice pressure, wind, mm-hmm. and the actual extension. So it's the weight of the skater, the push, and the wind resistance. When you've got those 3 things all in alignment, and the Dutch aren't heavy people, they have mm-hmm. a very, very healthy diet. Why? Well, one reason, they skated canals all the fucking time. And they just eat a traditional European diet. Mm-hmm. Like they have a lot of fish, and they love their berries, and they eat well. And they've got the
growing period of their summer. So there's a lot more fresh vegetables and fruits.
Fresh produce, and they're not tainted with all the friggin' pesticides, herbicides, mm-hmm. Everything that, typical North American diet consists of. So it's, quality food goes a long way, but man, their genetics allows them that. Mm-hmm. Right. And the Norse, you likely see this in Olympic lifting too, because a lot of the best lifters are the Scandinavians. They come in with a different approach on the bar. Mm-hmm. I saw it with the ones I was coaching. I saw it in MMA. I saw it in Olympic lifting. And a lot of those guys could really, there's a reason they do so well in CrossFit. Mm-hmm. So that's not a specialization. You got to be good at all of it. And they just have great natural athletic ability because of their mindset towards it. They're like, oh, cool. That looks like fun. Let's do that. Oh, you want me to hit a wind gate? Okay, cool. Let's try that.
Let's do that
that sounds sort of like this. Oh, okay, mm-hmm. cool. And it's just transferable. Yeah. Australia is another great example, shining example of crossing sports and eliminating the specialization, mm-hmm. making them generalists.
Yeah.
Because if you're really good at a lot of it, you can get by in most things, where a specialist is going to completely tank in the pool. Mm-hmm. Aussies are like, oh, we do this for like breakfast, right? Yeah. We got lung capacity for days.
Look at that from a survival perspective as well. It's like they had to be generalists because of how big the country is and how hostile some parts of it are and things like that.
Dude, it's wild. And that's, again, the development and the teaching, it all comes back to the education, regardless of the industry you're in. If more musicians were educated in the power of what their words were doing and what their music was doing, we would see a difference. Mm-hmm. If more athletes were educated, it's a money grab too, though, because it doesn't help the system. Mm-hmm. If you've got a bunch of generalists that don't need specialized physio rehab on their hip because they've been skating fucking left turns all day.
Yeah.
That was me, man. Like my coach.
Blown ACLs on one side.
Exactly. Everything happening. Well, that funds the system. Mm-hmm. That funds the system. And that's what keeps money on the bank. Right. So it's like, it breaks my heart that at the cost of what we're looking for those profit margins. And it's like, we see it in a lot of different industries, and athletics and music are just the ones that I spent the majority of my time on. And I can speak from personal experiences. And that's another big reason I'm not a hockey player. So there's so much politics towards it. You had to be this, and you had to be from this part of the town, and you had to do this, and then you had to look like this. And music was the opposite of that at the same time. Music was like, we accept you for exactly what you are. We love you the way you are. Like, we're going to have fun. It's jazz. There's a very big principle of jazz music, mm-hmm. improv.
Yeah.
Play off of the other players.
Listening and feeling and talking through your music.
When we come back to music being the language.
Yeah.
I still don't know how to sight read, man. I had to learn how to teach students, and I was a better teacher, but charts were put in front of me, and I was like,
Can you describe it to me? What am I supposed to be playing
Like,
here?
is this a swing? I knew enough,
Yeah.
and my band director would know that. And we never told the director though, the conductor.
Mm-hmm.
But the band director was always my bassist or my keyboardist.
Sure.
And they would just be like, yo, 4 on the floor. I was like, oh, that's what the kick drum is. Okay. Figured it out. So I like figured one thing. Oh, that's that thing. Oh, cool. I saw
Or
that one.
this kind of groove, you know, it's just like a second.
Yeah. They're like,
So
think Phil Collins. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
I can do that.
I can do that, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's endless. It's endless.
Yeah.
But that's the point though, is that I became a really good player, and one that this is a life lesson, man. Like if you want, especially in Calgary, can you use my hometown because we're like the farm club for Nashville.
Yeah.
Country music is huge here, and it's pop country. Mm-hmm. And the thing I didn't know about pop country is those drummers are goats, man. Yeah. Those guys, you don't hear the technicality because it's so simple and it's covered up and dressed with so much else. You got mandos, you got 4-part harmonies, you got a lot of layers of other instrumentation, but at the heart of the beat, oh my goodness, drummers, like you guys are gangsters. I learned that the hard way because I was like coming from like a Chili Peppers background in jazz. There's a lot of looseness, but like everything is on. So when you become the guy that regardless of your skill, you can go into a studio and your vibe is right. You can hang out and have a coffee and joke around and make the mood lighter. Those long studio days don't seem so long. So you're an asset.
Yep.
Also really helped that I was able to help correct some of the problems, wrists and necks and things, like just casually, like, oh yeah, hey, take my ball, just play around with that on your back. It wasn't like a coaching session. I was just like, hey, if you're up for it, man, I invite you to try this. Mm-hmm. And that put my stake up. And then I started learning how to sing, because another thing I learned with live performers is that it didn't matter how good of a country drummer you were, you also had to sing perfect harmonies. Mm-hmm. So it's like you had to be a goat on the drums and start to use your voice. So it's like, oh God.
Which is usually every drummer's worst nightmare. Like
it is, because it's so physical. You're not in an optimal position to really think about what's happening here. So there's the reason that they're oftentimes just hitting ad libs, or there's that you don't hear too many, other than Anderson .Paak. You don't hear too many absolute monster front men, or women as the drummer, because it's such a demanding physical job. Like when I'm wearing my Whoop, and when I first got Whoop, man, I'm the reason that they've got musical performance in Whoop now. We had a conversation. I was like, cool. We need to have something here, guys. I talked to the development team. I'm like, listen, I work with musicians. All of my musicians are going with a Whoop. We need a way to track what we are not tracking. It's really hard to manage. Mm-hmm. So they've got stage performance, and they made a global community for musicians. That started with one. That was me. Right.
Yeah, man.
And the reason I say all that is because, like, dude, when I first got hooked up on Whoop and I just riffed on the drums, just out of curiosity, it has a thing called auto detect. Mm-hmm. It auto detected me as a cyclist, which is my other, that was, if I didn't go to the Olympics for speed skating, it would have been for cycling. Mm-hmm. I got an engine, right? I love my zone 2, and I can go. I'm an endurance
forever.
Yeah. So it picked me up a 45-minute rehearsal as like zone 4, zone 5.
Oh, wow.
Homie. Yeah. Like, and that was just practice. That's not the added element and strain of a performance. Mm-hmm. That was me just zoning in. Here's the really interesting part. Rate of perceived exertion always comes up first before it shows a strain. I had like 1 or 2. I was like, didn't feel a thing. Yeah. And then I look at my heart rate. Holy shit, 170? Like, for that long? How did my heart not blow up?
Yeah.
But I didn't even feel it.
Yeah.
So it's like, moral of the story, musicians are athletes. The coolest thing about both of those worlds is it's a read and react approach. That's what I learned in hockey. You got to go to where the puck will be, not to where it is, and make things happen. Right? Strategy. It's like, we got really good at estimating what would happen, calculating, problem solving, hustling, team play, making sure that you're there for your bud. When he's getting beat up in front of the net, you go in there and give him the shot to the kidneys, right? Mm-hmm. and he'd come in and hack him in the back of the leg. Same thing with music. As a drummer, I notice that there's a really good, who's the quote? Herbie Hancock.
Oh yeah.
Said, "There's no such thing as a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
If you happen to hit the wrong note, just do it again.
Yeah. Do it on purpose.
Bingo."
Yep.
Same thing. So if you notice your trumpet player hit something and goes to a different part, you can cover that as a drummer. I'm in charge. I can bring that piece back in, or I can crescendo back up, or I can hit a shot to distract the note. So it makes it sound like, or it's, especially with my very first music teacher, Lael Johnson, my band director out of high school, taught me that it doesn't matter where you go in, because he knew that I couldn't read music. It doesn't matter where you come in, it's where you come out. So if you come in at the wrong spot on a fill, that's cool. You know time really well. So just wait, play an extended fill. It'll actually feel really cool. And I started getting like, that was one of my mic drop moments. Like I was known for like an off, like, whoa, what just happened? Or drops, because I just didn't know where we were in the song. So I would just stop playing.
And let everybody else keep.
It sounded like it was supposed to happen, but I didn't know where we were often.
So then you're listening and find it and get back in.
Yeah, that exactly. And it would be like a really tasty lead back in. And then people were like, whoa. And sometimes my other musicians would catch on to that. So my bass player would drop out with me.
Yeah.
And then he'd do a little boom, doodle doom, 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 boom, bada boom.
Come in. Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. So we would lead back in. And now that's a thing. And that's why I get a lot of the gigs I get, is because I am a fun fucking drummer. Right. I know how to make a crowd move. I'm a performer, right? And it comes back to understanding the power of music, and the best notes are the ones that are not played.
The simplicity. Yeah. Hell yeah, man. You're talking my language.
Bingo.
Yeah. This has been so much fun. In the interest of time, we can start wrapping this thing up. Any final?
Go for another 3 hours.
I know.
Trust
like
me.
we're starting to open that up, and I'm like, because I primarily play bass, and I was like, I'm always looking for those drummers that I can talk to through the music. And like all the ones that I play with all the time, we don't even have to say anything. I play a certain way. The kick drum changes to match my articulation. They change the kick drum. I change my pattern. Like
bingo.
Yeah.
That's the relationship, and that's what the power of a rhythm section is. That I think it's one of the most underestimated. But next time anybody listening, if you're a live music connoisseur like Jared and I, you go to a show, and that's how I know that band practices. Because there's a difference. There's a lot of bands, actually the band that I play in right now, they just don't practice. And I'm like, well, you can feel it, and you've got a rotating cast.
Yeah.
My bassist and we practice.
Yeah.
So when I am playing with the bassist, it still feels locked because we know each other. And you should see every time I'm brought on for a gig, because like I said, we got like 3 strings of the Frontiers. Every time I'm brought on, when Ethan sees, he's I'm like, yeah, man, we're gonna have fun.
Be a party. Yeah.
Yeah. And because we can change our songs every single time, because we're no Backstreet Boys. We're in sync. We're right in sync. And we lock in. And imagine if we take that and make that a metaphor for life. If we're in sync with the people around us and we're feeling off of the environment, life is jazz.
Hell yeah.
And that's a very, very cool feeling, when you can just sit in the flow and watch and respond and have a conversation. It's like fluid, man. Everything's water. It's so beautiful. If more people were doing that, man, we'd be in a very different spot.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being here. Anything that you'd like to promote, anything that you'd like to plug, make the audience aware of that you've got going on in the world?
Yeah, man. I'm really, first of all, thank you so much. This has been such a really fun, authentic, genuine, like we're just riffing. And these are the most informative, I find, because like I didn't know what to expect, and I just knew, okay, I'm showing up, man. And maybe that's the moral of the story. Just getting in the room, be there, let things happen. My dad, I had to enlift this message, because he always started with, don't wait for things to happen, make things happen. And I just cut out the first half. Just make things happen. And we were talking about that in hockey, and that was the first lesson I ever learned from my dad. Going out there and making things happen. Is anything that you want in life, you can have. It just takes practice. It takes putting in the reps. It takes the theory that's very common in our group, the start and then keep going theory. And that's the key to success. In terms of the stuff that I'm offering, like you alluded to it, man, I wear many hats. I've got an album coming out, an international tour where I'm going to Australia. I'm going to be on the west coast of Canada. I'm going to get out to Ontario and Manitoba as well for what I call coaching concerts. And it's music with a bit more of a message. You leave with more than just a t-shirt and a good time. You leave with a transformative experience. And if there are any people out there that want to learn more about that, you can hit up my website, MikeTheSchwartz.com. I've got tour. I'm available for all private concerts as well. It's just really taking the message that we've talked about and empowering people with agency in their lives. And a lot of people don't consider themselves, this is news, a lot of people don't consider themselves creatives or musicians, artists. And if you create solutions, if you're an entrepreneur, you're an artist, you're a creative. Yeah. You might be an accidental creative, but if you create solutions to problems, that is the definition of being a creative. You find ways around things. So if you're interested in either the private coaching or private concert, I mean, those are fun ways to do it. Yeah. And for those of us that are still new to it, I've been known in the industry now as the podcast pro, and that's one of the easiest ways to get your voice heard. So yeah, you may not play an instrument, you may not sing yet. I bet you got a message though. Everybody's got a story. And if you can learn how to share that story, you can help make your world a little bit better. So I offer a full year mentorship with my my pro podcast playbook. And you can find that link on MikeTheSchwartz.com as well. And that's my socials. Playing around. I'm also the artist is known as Brave Bear. That's my artist.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, look around, please reach out. I'm a pretty friendly guy. I message everybody that messages me. Sometimes to their surprise, sometimes not. Yeah. What? You message me? Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
How you doing? Right?
I always love it when I get a surprise message from you. Like, hey, send me some of your music. Like that, yeah, that came out that I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. Like I really want to connect with, here's my mission, man. Like like I said this once, said it 17,000 more times. Is that every coach can actually be very, very profound when they start blending the world of music, because your message will be amplified. So part of my big purpose here is connecting with other coaches that have a story to share and helping them either set up their podcast so that they can do it on their own with my help, my guidance, my mentorship, or setting up anybody with a message that just wants to speak. You can do spoken word and I'll lay a beat down. You can be part of a compilation disc, hide behind in the shadows for a minute until you have the confidence to build your own album, because we've done that with coaches and we're changing the world. These coaches now monetize their message through music. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. If you have another revenue stream as an entrepreneur or as a business or as a coach, and you can say, yeah, hey, I get that question a lot. Instead of sitting with them for another 25-minute, half-hour session, clarity call or a strategy call or a coaching, whatever it is to get them into your funnel, just direct them to your friggin' song.
You go listen to this.
Yeah, go listen to this. And then they go, what? Like, yeah, I got an album. I'm a recording artist too, by the way. You just leveled up and blew minds. Chase did that. He made $6,000 in his first 3 months. It was just insane from that as a funnel. Right. For those of you who don't know, Chase Tollison, another great friend of ours, like with a very powerful message. So monetize your message. Ask me how. Let's get you rolling. I want to play in your town. I want to help. I'm the biggest cheerleader, man. Like I want to play and help support you with my fine tools, and then help you grow into yours. And that's the name of the game. It's a conversation, man. Life is jazz.
Powerful words, man. Thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I'm sure we'll keep the conversation going offline. And anytime you want to come back for part 2, you're always welcome to as well. And so,
all right, man, I love it. We got to get you on the pro show too, man.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for that.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for being here, and for everybody else, stay weird, stay strong.